Dear Montessori colleagues and friends all over the world, hello and welcome. This is Montessori Institute Prague podcast, Montessori love stories that need to be told. My name is Mirka. I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm really excited that you're listening to us right now, and I really hope you're going to enjoy this.
Hi, Heidi.
Hello.
Hi,
Here we are.
how are you?
I'm okay.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much for coming today, making this time to talk to me. And welcome to the podcast of Montessori Institute Prague. The podcast is called Montessori Love Stories That Need to Be Told. And there's an idea behind why I'm doing these conversations and asking people about their stories, because at some point I realized I have so many amazing friends and wonderful Montessorians, and they have the coolest stories ever, how they heard about Montessori and what are all the beautiful things that they did in their lives. And I thought somebody has to start capturing these stories. So I set on the journey of capturing all these amazing, inspirational life stories of people, and I'm so thankful that you accepted my invitation to be here with me today. So thank you. Okay, and to our listeners, this is Heidi Philippart. She's an AMI 0 to 3 trainer. She's a mother of 2 beautiful, successful boys, a wife of one of the most amazing husbands I know. And she's also a dear friend. And she's one of the most beautiful people that I have met on this earth. If you ask me about the one thing about Heidi, I would say that I think probably of all the people that I know, you are you give love at all times and with such ease and just like such grace that it's just so much part of you that you love people, you love life, and you're not willing to do anything else. And that's just so inspiring, and people love to be around you, and we love to work with you at Montessori Institute. I'm so glad you're one of our trainers.
Yeah. But so you can't help but love life when you spend your time with young children, because that's what I learned from them, that love of life, you know.
Yes, that's true. And maybe I want to say this is one of the things that are so extraordinary about you, that you train all over the world, but at the same time, you own a school and you're in a classroom almost every day. And I think that makes you a very special trainer, but we'll get to that later. So, because what I want to do is I would like to ask you, what was your life like before Montessori? Okay. Then I would like to ask you, how did you first hear about Montessori? And then tell me a little bit about your journey after that. But before we hop onto the before Montessori part, I always ask my guests a little tricky question. Who are you, Heidi?
I'm just a girl doing life. And I say girl because I still don't feel grown up. I remember even when I turned 40, I remember, a dear friend of mine, we had this discussion and I said to her, I still don't feel grown up. And she said, how much more grown up do you want to be? You have 2 children, your own house and your own business. They doesn't get much more grown up than that. But yeah, I do just feel like a girl doing life, still finding things out, still learning, and still discovering life, and, and still have big dreams and big hopes,
That's amazing. And you do feel to me like, a very young person every day. Like every day is a new day for Heidi. And
it is. Don't let these, well, I mean, maybe I don't look so girlish today because I'm feeling very tired, but, don't let these girlish looks deceive you,
You look lovely, and there's a beautiful painting behind you. Is that something special?
It is, actually. It was painted by a friend of mine in the 60s. You can see it. And it's shapes on the beach. And yeah, and she she gave it to me because it was too big for her house, and she gave it to me. And unfortunately, she's not with me anymore, so I have it as a memory of her. And yeah, I like it. I like the colors, and I can see the shapes on the beach. That brown thing is a big rusty pipe that was on the beach. If you're wondering what the brown is.
Yeah, they are beautiful colors, and they are very much like you, the red and the orange, and shining with energy. Okay, so would you, Heidi, please share with us, people are really always so curious about, before you became a Montessorian, what was your, what did you do? What was your life like? Are you willing to share?
I'm willing to share. Well, I used to be a professional dancer, so of course I was dancing. People that know me know I'm passionate about Montessori, but of course I was passionate about dancing. So I feel quite lucky in that sense that I've had two sort of jobs or vocations in life that I've been really passionate about. And, some people, never find that true passion. I grew up in my family was very poor growing up, lived in a very, very small little street, small little house, not much money. But I was always, was very social, lots of family around, lots of talking, lots of singing, lots of dancing, and, and eventually I went on to become, a professional dancer. And
so where did you grow up?
I grew up in a place called Swansea in South Wales. Okay. And the part that I grew up in, there used to be all copper and tin mines in that area. And yeah, it's my mum still lives there. I was born there in a very small little house, and and I danced, for many years actually, and I came to Montessori through dancing, which is quite interesting. Actually.
So did you study dancing?
Yes, I went to the London Contemporary Dance School in London. I left home at 16 and went to London and trained as a professional dancer. And it was modern contemporary dance. That was my that I was studying, although I'd been dancing from a very young age. I think I was like 6 when I started dancing. And it was, tap, modern, ballet, and doing a lot of musical theatre and working sort of, and even I was working semi-professional from the time I was about sort of 13. And then I studied. And then with contemporary dance, it's very hard to get into companies, and it's very hard to find work, especially, because most people are working freelance. It's very hard to find work. So I've always been quite sort of sensible and always wanted to make my own way in the world. I didn't want to keep, even though I left home at 16, I didn't want my parents to feel responsible for me. So I always did little jobs and little things. So, as part of my training, I also trained as like a dance teacher. So I used to give like dance lessons and exercise classes, as well as doing cleaning and working in bars and all sorts of things in between. And I think with the type of work that I wanted to do with the dancing, you always have these short contracts, and you go from one contract to the next contract, and you'll have space in between. And the contemporary dance sort of contract never came up. So I decided, okay, I'm going to travel and use my musical theatre, and, ended up working on a cruise ship and, doing cabaret in the south of France and, and lots of other things. But really just, performing and, sort of dancing.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you realize that you're becoming very old in the dance world. It's a very young profession, suddenly,
I should have asked you to bring some photos and share on screen. It would have been so lovely to maybe next time when we do it.
Because I really did trade my, false eyelashes and high heels and, runny noses and
Wow.
And children.
Wow. So you're on a cruise ship and you're around how old at that point?
Well, when I was working on the cruise ships, that was sort of like my mid-20s. That was in my mid-20s, and I had a partner that I was with at that time, and he was a soloist at the Dutch National Ballet in Holland.
Okay.
So that's how I got to the Netherlands. Okay.
So the ship is sailing into the harbor now?
It wasn't. I was in the Caribbean and in Bermuda and New York, sailing between Bermuda and New York and sailing in the Caribbean. I used to do Bermuda and New York in what was that? That was in the summer, and then the Caribbean in the winter months. And then, and then I would go home to the Netherlands and be with him, and he would come and visit me, and we sort of had this sort of life for 10 years like that. And that was when also his mother was a teacher, and she noticed that I was very good with young children because I was always, helping her look after the grandchildren, and also I was teaching dance in between contracts and things like that. And she had this book. It was called, what was it called now? Anything that school can do, I can do better.
Oh.
And it was about a mother who had homeschooled her children using the Montessori method, and that was how I got really sort of intrigued by this and really interested in this. And then actually what was quite interesting is my partner at that time, he came to the Netherlands to live, and his ex-girlfriend also lived in the Netherlands. And of course I met her, and she had been to Montessori schools all through, growing up, because there's a lot of Montessori schools in the Netherlands. And she was this amazing person. And then it was really bizarre how, then I started to meet these amazing people that had been, sort of in a Montessori education program. So it really sort of tweaked my interest then. And then, yes, I was getting older, he was getting older, and it came to the point where, we sort of said, well, we have to, if we're going to start a family and things like that, you have to come and live in Amsterdam. So I came to Amsterdam to live. Needless to say, I was only, and I was looking to do other things, not just dance then. I thought, okay, this is an opportunity to maybe do something else because I was getting older. And it was amazing. The woman that used to do the spotlight for the ballet, for the Dutch National Ballet, was a trained Montessori 0 to 3 teacher. And during the day, she had this little school in the garden of her house. She had this little school during the day, and she used to do the spotlighting for the ballet at night. And sort of I got to sort of know about her. And then what happened is I was looking for something else to do, and they were looking for someone to come and speak English and work with the children. And suddenly I found my new vocation.
Wow.
I mean, it was quite incredible.
Sorry, it sounds like the plan was already made, like way before you knew. And it was really quite bizarre. And I didn't realize I'd sort of talk about, fate, life putting you in the place where you need to be. It was bizarre. I remember the first day going to meet her at the school and seeing the children there, and I was absolutely amazed. These children were speaking 3 languages, speaking a bit of Dutch, speaking English, speaking Spanish, speaking German, they were speaking so many different languages, and they were all under 4. I was like,
Okay, all under. And they had, a level of independence that I had never seen, children, they, not only, I mean, they were, dressing themselves, which, is quite impressive to see a 2-year-old dress themselves if you've never seen it before, because most people are used to dressing 2-year-olds. But, like making themselves a sandwich and, cleaning out the fish tank and, doing, all sorts of things. So I was totally bowled over by what I saw by these children. And for me, what impressed me more than anything is, especially coming from Britain, where, it really is, it's especially the area I grew up, it's, very much a monolingual sort of country where people are speaking one language. And when you learn a second or third language, it's often taught by somebody that's learned the language, not a native speaker. You have to think, I was growing up in the 60s. So, when you're growing up in the 60s, there wasn't this global market like there is now. I remember when the first Italian family came to live in our, in our area, they were like, celebrities, celebrities. So yes, it was, so for me to see these children speaking all these different languages and more than one language, when, of course, been visiting Holland and been in Holland and visited other countries, but I was struggling to really learn to speak another language, and language wasn't my forte when I was at school. It wasn't my forte.
So you're now in that little Montessori school, and you're working as an English language teacher, yes?
Yeah,
and
an English speaker. As an English speaker, not even an English, not necessarily a not necessarily a language teacher, but just being,
being there with them and speaking English to them. Okay.
In part of that environment.
Well, what happened after that?
And then of course, and I mean, I can reveal who this person was. That person was Patty Wallner, who's also a 0 to 3 trainer. And at that point, she was just a teacher. But of course, there was a bit of a history with her family as well, because, because Patty's very connected with the Montessori family, because she was married to one of the grandsons, of Maria Montessori. So suddenly I was thrown into this immersion of Montessori, like no one is, people would, real people that are real Montessori enthusiasts would love to have, been thrown into this circle. So then, of course, I met, people like Renilda Montessori and, lots of the family, and Dr. Montanaro, Silvana Montanaro, was also coming backwards and forwards. Of course, the annual general meeting for AMIs in Amsterdam every year. So it was just like a snowball. Do you know what I mean? The interest was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was just being surrounded by these, most, amazing people, like really amazing people. And then, life's always a bit complicated, isn't it? It's always a bit complicated. Then my partner at the time, sort of found a better version, shall we say, or upgraded, or we can say found a better version of what he wanted in life, to be with. And I was really thrown. And it came at a point also where I had just lost my father as well. And that was a big learning curve for me. There was 2 things that happened in that period. I'd been very ill when I was working on the ships, and I'd had a near-death experience, and then my father died, and it was, what should I say? I think it was the first time in my life, especially as you think now, I was in my mid-20s, when I realized I didn't control my life. The way you think you can control life, And these things that happened in my life that were quite sort of shocking or hard or difficult to deal with, but I had to embrace them and accept it and realize that I wasn't the one in control anymore. And it made me sort of look at my life really in a different perspective. So when this split came then, because this was the love of my life, yes, we'd been together for 10 years. So when this split came, I had some big sort of questions that I had to answer. What I was going to do, was I going to stay in the Netherlands? What was I going to do? But I'd really fallen in love with the Montessori, and I was really, I'd chosen this to be my new path. And I remember I was going to be doing a diploma course with Dr. Montanaro, okay, and going to Italy. And when she heard of this breakup between me and my love, she said, "Oh, you have to do it now. You have to do it now, Heidi. And Judy Ryan is doing a course in Denver next week. Okay, you have to do it now." So I was like, and I don't know, for those of you that maybe sort of never met Dr. Montanaro, she's quite a strong woman sort of thing. And I was like, okay, I have to do it now. She said, and I believed her that I could do it now. Do you know what I mean? And I remember ringing my mother up going, I'm going to do this course next week. I'm going to go to Denver. I'm going to try and rent out my apartment. She's like, how are you going to pay for it? I don't know yet. I'll work that out when I get there. And, there was all this, everybody's going, really? Really? You're going to? And of course, because I was working, it was lovely because I was working with Patty at the school. Of course, they all wanted me to do it, to do the course. So then it was fine me leaving my work. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't have that problem to sort of solve. But yes, so I did it.
You bought a ticket and went?
I just packed my bag and I just went to Denver. And I remember I spoke with Judy Ryan. I had this sort of telephone conversation. They said, yes, we'll take you, we accept you. So I turn up in Denver with nowhere to live, nothing. I literally turn up with my suitcase. And so I just go to the training center because I didn't have anywhere else to go to. And and this is what I sort of learned about, I don't have control over my life, that sometimes you just have to go with your gut instinct and do it, So I'm sitting in the office and Judy's saying to me, so where are you living? Where are you staying? I said, well, actually, I don't have anywhere to live yet or anywhere to stay yet. But the girl that I've rented my apartment to, her cousin lives here. And he said I could stay in his apartment and for a couple of nights until I sort something out. So he's going to come now and pick me up and take me back to his apartment. And I didn't know this man. I didn't know where his apartment was. I didn't know anything. And Judy's like, oh, okay. This, but I just trusted it all. I just trusted everyone. And he did. This man came and picked me up and took me back to his apartment that he shared with another man. Do you know what I mean? And I slept on the sofa in the lounge that evening. And I woke up in the morning to a phone call because I had his phone number. I woke up to a phone call from Judy saying, we found you somewhere to stay. Where are you? And I said, I don't know where I am. And because they'd all gone to work. So I was, rummaging around looking for an envelope. Yes. So I could order a taxi to try and get someone to pick me up to take me to this other place I was going to stay, which I didn't know. And then I sort of, at that point, they were starting a new school in Denver, and also they needed a lot of help at the training center. So I was working on the side, like helping them with things in the office at the training center, and doing little bits, anything I could, doing also, because part of my dance training, I did massage. Okay, I had a training in massage as part of my dance training. So I was giving massage on the breaks to students and things, to try and earn money and doing all sorts of stuff. It was really, but I did it. I managed to get through it. And here I am, so I trained. And
so how was the diploma course with Judy? I mean, you must have really wonderful memories of that.
I became such a good friend. Judy really supported me and helped me, through that. Because I was also going through, you think I'd just gone through this big breakup, turned up, and was just thrown into this course. She was an amazing support, and the course was just fabulous. Talk about, oh my gosh, I grew so much, and I think I really came to know myself and know what I wanted out of life, and it wasn't anything complicated. It was quite simple, really. The things I wanted, I just wanted to be happy. And I tell you, and there were some great trainers on that course that were actually trainers in training at that point, like Maria Vidalis, Cha-Cha. She was one of the trainers on that course. And I remember her giving this most amazing lecture on, it was when we were doing the lecture on the community. Actually, I remember that. And she was talking about, the people that you have in a community and this sort of this quality of person that you want around children. And I remember her saying, you really have to surround yourself with beautiful people. And that sentence has stayed with me my whole life since she said that. But I also remember becoming so emotional about what she said. And I realized that I maybe wasn't surrounding myself all the time by the best of people, and then I thought, I really need to make some changes in my life and, take that on board, surround myself with beautiful people I want to be with, people that give to you as well as you give to them, and not always with people that just take from you. And it was that the course was really amazing. Dora Vidalis, her sister, was also on that course. Of course, Judy. Oh my gosh, it was.
How about some of the students? Do you still, are you still in touch with some of the people who studied?
Oh my gosh, I made one of my probably closest and most dearest friends there. Because I know a lot of people, especially any Montessorian that's listening, knows sort of Susan Stevenson. Okay, and I met her daughter, who was like the same age as me, doing the course. And of course, I met Susan then through her, and we became really good friends, me and her daughter. And again, here we go. This was another revelation that sort of inspired me, because of course you think of Susan's daughter, she had been through Montessori schools, and not Montessori schools as well, because of course she went to school in the States. So she'd been to Montessori schools, she'd been sent to Sweden to school, she'd been homeschooled, she'd been to regular high school. And she was just such amazing person. And I was like, my gosh, the people that go through Montessori education end up being these amazing people.
I heard about Susan's daughter from other people as well. A dear friend of mine, Sue Pritzker, knew her, and she also spoke very highly, and she said she was an amazing person as well.
Yeah, and I was just like, wow, this is something special. What was quite interesting, she told me this really funny story, because I said, oh, I must have been fantastic, your mother is, Susan Stevenson and all this sort of thing. She said, no, she's a mom like every other mom, it's like, and I said, and you went to all the, you went to, you went to, some Montessori schools. And she said, but I also went to, regular schools as well. And she said, she remembers being really excited about going to high school. And she was going to like a regular high school. So I was so excited, and I was so, sort of psyched up about going to high school. And I can't remember whether she'd been in a period where she'd been homeschooled and been sort of alone a lot. And that she was really psyched up to sort of then go to school and be with a lot of sort of young people. I can't remember, but she was really excited to go. And she said, the first day was so disappointing. She said, I couldn't believe that nobody was in love with learning, and nobody wanted to read, and nobody was excited about what we were going to learn. And I was like,
oh, yeah.
and she said that was that. And, and I've spoken to her again about that as an adult, sort of later in life. And she said that really sort of stuck with her, the fact that people didn't want to learn.
Yeah.
And she was so excited about going to high school and having this opportunity to learn all these different things that she hadn't learned before,
Yeah.
So
I can imagine that, being Susan's daughter, that would have been a really big surprise for her, because we know Susan, she travels around the world, and she's such an artsy and educated person and writing books. And so being a daughter of Susan, that must have been hard for her.
Yeah, it was really.
Yeah. Okay, so now you have your diploma as a 0 to 3 teacher or Montessori guide, and where do your steps go from there?
Okay, so then I came back, and of course at this point then Patty was going to train as a trainer. So then she actually went to Rome for a year with to do a course with Dr. Montanaro. So she was away for a whole year. So then they asked me if I would, manage the school in her absence. So then I started sort of, managing the school, and my gosh, that was a learning curve, I tell you, as well, because, the one thing, I mean, for those of you just out of training, you come out of training and you want to replicate what you've done on the training, and you're looking for the right sponge, the sponge that you saw in the training center, and the right jag and the right this. And of course, especially when you live in a different country, in a different culture, you don't have those sponges, or you don't have those jags. And so you really have to, sort of, start thinking outside the box and going back to the principles of, it's important you have a sponge, not this particular sponge. Do you know what I mean? And also you have to have things that are sustainable. Do you know what I mean? There's no point in having a sponge shipped from America that once it gets lost, you don't have a sponge again. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, so there was all those sort of things that you sort of have to learn. And then also all those things like about licensing and about running a school and about, the pedagogy and sometimes the, what the government expects of education and expects from you. It won't fit. It doesn't fit together. So then you have to be really creative, you're really creative. And of course, when you're not in that driving seat of being, say, like the manager or the owner or the director of the school, you're wondering why they're doing things like this. Why, this is a bit strange, because of course you don't see behind the curtain of what they're, you don't see the balls that they are juggling and how they're trying to, they just want you to
be underwater. Yeah,
exactly. It's exactly your swan image, it's like that's like crazy, but yeah, I mean, you don't see that, because of course they just want you to do your job, but they do their job, and that's their job, so that was quite a learning curve. And then life got a bit complicated again then, and what was happening then, and then I was some friends asked me if I would open up a school in Wales. I was going to go back to Wales, where I came from, to open up a school. And then my friend here, because I used to babysit. I used to be like, sort of do a little bit of sort of au pair and sort of babysit after work. Okay. To make ends meet. So I used to work all day at the school and then babysit all night and babysit on the weekends. And then the woman that I used to babysit with, she said, well, why don't you start a school here? Why don't we do a school here together? And And then, another friend said, yes, sometimes it's easy to drop the pebble in the pond and let it ripple out. Now, to get up and go to Wales where nobody knows about Montessori, and you would have to educate your sort of clients and audience, that would be quite a challenge. And that could be hard, especially when you don't have, because I didn't have any collateral behind me or, an investment behind me, really. So that would have been hard. Whereas she said, here, everybody knows Montessori. People want Montessori, especially for this age group. Everybody knows it, so it'll be very easy. So, so I ended up then opening my own school. And I started with 15 children and 2 assistants. And that was, my gosh, that was like over 26 years ago.
And that's the same school that you run until today?
Yeah. And what's quite interesting as well, like I tell you, I really didn't have any money. So the school was started in who do you mean? Oh my gosh, I don't know if I should be revealing all these things. But the school was actually started in a squat. We were actually squatting in this school building.
Wow.
Yeah. And in Holland, squatters have really a lot of rights. If a building is empty for more than a year, you have the right to squat it, to take ownership of this building.
Wow.
So they'd been this group of people that had moved into this school building, and they were doing all like community stuff, like art projects and architects, and there was a children's theatre there and stuff, and they wanted somebody to come and do daycare. So we were, through a friend of a friend's we were invited to have this space. And when we got there, we had no hot water. We had there were so many things that we didn't have, and I used to take all the washing home every day from school and wash it at home. And we used to boil kettles if we wanted hot water. I mean, oh my gosh, I can't, how we, and, and we just learned. I mean, and in those days, there were no ready-made materials for 0 to 3. You had to make all your own materials. So we just did practical life. And as we got more clients and that and everything, we started to buy materials and make materials. But, I have some of those early pictures, I think, of those early days where you see the shelves are like bare. There's hardly anything on the shelf,
Oh.
And
I
we
should have asked you to bring some of these photos. Next time when I come to your house, let's bring a camera and let's do like a session, just like looking in your photo albums. That would be so lovely.
I have to dig them out. I mean, they're probably faded because they, in those days, color was not what it is now. But I mean, but we used to do things, they used to flower arrange and wash the dishes and set the table, and we used to make food together, and, and we would be doing all sorts. And then they would even help with like all the cleaning. I mean, we'd be cleaning the skirting boards and cleaning the doors and doing all sorts of things. I mean, cleaning was taken to a new level, way beyond cleaning the table. Do you know what I mean? But we did so much stuff, and we had so much fun. I mean, we had so much fun with those children. It was really.
And was the name of your school the same as it's right now? What's the origin of
what it is now?
I was always wondering, what's the origin of that name? What's the story behind? Why is it called Two Voices?
Well, we called it Two Voices because 2 languages. So the 2 voices, and we also, I tell you the one thing, I was very aware that I was, what should I say, an inexperienced teacher at that point. So I really didn't dare to say this was a Montessori school. And our title used to be sort of two voices, and we used to promote more the bilingual first than the Montessori, because I didn't feel like I could, because it was just me as well, and I didn't feel sort of, I thought I didn't want to bring AMI into disrepute. Do you know what I mean? Sort of thing as well. So I would put a title actually on our sort of, what should I say, our name actually said bilingual, and then it said Montessori based preschool. So I was really very careful with the whole because
I think, yeah. No, sorry, go ahead.
Because I was, especially after, I'd spent time around the family, and I also had seen people misusing Montessori in different ways. And also because, this was a new school and we were starting up, and, I didn't know whether I was going to be a really good teacher or director of a school, or do you know what I mean? I didn't know how that was going to work. So I didn't want to, put people off Montessori. Do you know what I mean as well? And AMI really has, such high standards that I respect and appreciate, that I never wanted to sort of, yeah.
I always tell people when they ask me about this kind of thing, like when to use the word Montessori and when not to, I say until you're fully trained and you're ready to say, I'm going to abide by the Montessori standard, you go ahead and use either inspired by Montessori or Montessori based, exactly like you did.
And I've been working in Montessori then for 7 years, and I still didn't feel I could just put Montessori
in there. Yeah.
No.
My next question is, when did it first occur to you that you might apply for the trainers training of trainers?
That was really well down the road. That was, Judy had been sort of, hinting, should we say hinting, or, saying, for a long while. But what they all knew about me is how much I loved being with the children and working every day actually with the children. I love it. I was with them today, and yeah, it's like the best part of the day, always being with them. And, she'd been hinting at it. And I think it was probably, 2010, maybe. Susan was here staying in my house, Susan Stevenson, and Judy. And I remember Judy saying, Susan was really going, maybe you should be a trainer and all this. It would be really good if you did the training, because they were starting this seminar format, this different type of format for training. Oh, you should do it, Heidi, you should do it. And I said to Judy, Judy, what do you think? She said, well, I just want to tell you, Heidi, she said, now you're split between family and work. Okay. You're now going to be split between family, work, trainer. And she said, and you just have to be ready for that, And I remember then we took my husband out to dinner, and they were all making all sorts of promises to him that I can't mention online on my behalf. But my husband had seen me also grow up, and he had been there when I started the school actually. And he had been that person that sat with me in Kinko's printers. That was the only printing shop. I didn't even know, because people didn't have printers in their house in those days. At 1:00 in the morning, on his birthday, printing something for school, so he was there with me from the beginning. And I remember him looking at me and saying to me, it's okay if you want to do life like this. Okay, I'm happy to go with you down this road. But you can also, when the school closes, you can also stop, because you are never going to be finished, Heidi. And I tell you, that was one of the best pieces of advice. And I looked at him, here is his birthday. And here we are. I mean, we'd been out to dinner and then we were doing my work afterwards. But I mean, and he was right, because that's it. You're never finished. There's always something to do. And I have a little bit of that sort of, how should I say, that sort of little bit of a perfectionist sort of attitude, that I like things to be just so, and I want to get it right, and I want to finish this, and I want to do that, and and yeah, that was.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I know Adrian a little bit, and I have the deepest admiration for him. I think he's an amazing person, and you were just blessed. God gave you somebody very special, and I think it goes along. I believe that you were given a huge mission from God, and He gave you the person to live, to be with, because you can't be doing all what you're doing and changing the world and training people all over the world and run the school and be with your family. You need that. You just need the person to do this with you, and he's amazing.
He's an amazing support. I mean, he's, he supports me in whatever I do. He's a very biased fan, shall I say. I remember when I wrote my first lecture, and I asked him to read it, and he said, wow. He said, wow, it's fabulous. It's really good. It's and all this. And then I asked Susan to read it. She was like, oh my gosh, this is. And she said, Adrian, how could you say that to her? Like, well, I love her and I want her to love me, It's like, but no, he has. I mean, and I think, that sort of, behind every great man, there's a great woman. Behind every great woman, there's a great man. Behind every person, there's great people. Do you know what I mean? And I have a lot of great people behind me, because I took on board what Chacha said. Surround yourself with, people.
Well, I say that it takes a village to train a trainer. Yeah. So as it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to train a trainer, because it's such a huge job and so many years of work that you really do need that support of people who are close to you to do it.
And he has an amazing sense of humor. I mean, we laugh every day. I love to laugh as well, and we have a lot of fun, and and I think that's also what's nice. I think that's what I like about being with the children, because they are really in love with the moment.
Yeah, and they can really laugh. Like, they make you cry when they start laughing, how it comes from their heart, right? It's like so like in their body. I know, yes.
Right.
So what do you do today? What is your life like today?
Today,
where can people find you?
Today it was, early start, off to school. I cycle to school. So I cycle. It was a bit of a wet day, so got a bit wet. It's a little bit wet on the edges. So then, when you arrive, and then they, and as soon as you walk in the door, they're going, Heidi, and everybody's saying good morning, and they're running around. I was a bit later going in this morning, so they were all really, running up, and I've still got streaks on my trousers from the noses that rubbed along the leg, Yeah, and today was one of those. It was one of those bitty days today where I didn't do any job I set out to do. Mm-hmm. I have 2 new staff in the environment, and that's quite interesting. One new staff member has come in, and she's been with us for two weeks, and she's not going to stay because she feels very overwhelmed, and And I appreciate people's honesty. It's not for everyone. And the thing is, you can show it to people and they like it and they love it. You can tell them a nice story about what it's like to be in the classroom. They come and do a whole observation day with you. But, 2 weeks in, she said, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. Because she's also, it reminds me of me when I was her age, because she's also au pairing and babysitting and then working with us, and she's trying to study and she just feels overwhelmed. So I'm helping her finish and work her way out. And then I've got in a lovely new lady that's starting that has come from one of our orientation courses.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's Cam. That's Cam, and she got in touch with me, and she's been writing to me ever since she did the orientation course and said, I would love to do anything, and is there a way I can come and work with you? And I've said, we'll see what we can do. And yeah, and so she started this week. So I've been, so I was helping her and introducing her to the children. And then we've had some challenges with certain children this week. So I've been helping the teachers with those. And then I had, so that was going on. I was doing some observation in the classroom, observing the children, especially the child that's been very challenging in the environment at the moment. And then I had a meeting with some parents today. They came in because they had some concerns about their child, and he's also going to be, they're having to pick the next school for him. So that's a big decision for them, because you're going to be 8 years in that next school. And of course, they're from Brazil, so they're not that so familiar with the Dutch education system. So then they're wondering, do they go into the Montessori and the Dutch education system, or do they go the international school route? I listen to them, actually, is what I do most of the time. I just listen to what their concerns are and answer their questions. And yeah, and that's what I did. And then the environment, you're always working on the environment. So then after lunch today, then the children were going to the park, the older children, and the little ones were sleeping. So then to the teachers and me, we went and started pulling the classroom apart and making some changes in the classroom, because unfortunately this year I had to close down one of my schools because I had 2 schools, and we've just merged them together. So we got this excess of things, more things than we need at the moment. So, there was some areas that weren't working to the optimum. So we did some changes today. So spent some time with them working on the environment and that. So,
well, don't throw away your extras just yet, okay? Because Ludmila and I are thinking about opening a classroom for Ukrainian children in Prague. So hold on to your extras, okay? We might be coming and knocking on your door and saying, okay, let's see. So we have to start wrapping up. I do want to, why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners if they would like to take a course with you. You now train in 2 places, or is there, just share a little bit about where you are with it?
Well, at the moment, I'm, training, of course, in Prague. I mean, diploma and assistance courses. And I'm also training in London. Those are my 2 main sort of hubs at the moment, should we say. London.
So Maria Montessori Institute London, if people want to find you, or Montessori Institute Prague.
Yes. And the diploma course in London is in the summer. So it's European summer, not American summer. So it's 6 weeks, it's two 6-week blocks with some online stuff in the interim year, about 4 weeks. And that's it. I've done other small stuff in others, but this is my regular. I mean, I do.
Yes. Okay. And do you also do like school consulting? If people
do.
Yes.
One of the things that people don't realize is AMI does actually train consultants. A lot of people say they're consultants and sometimes don't have a training, but it is a training. And even as a trainer, even though I'm a teacher, even though I'm a trainer, I still had to do a training to be a consultant. So yeah, and I've done the training, and yes, I do consultations, school consultations, and lots of,
So if people wanted to reach you, they can write to Montessori Institute Prague. I have your email. I'm not giving it away, but
and Emmy has my email, and MMI has my email, and lots of people. I mean, I worked for a long time. I've done a lot of things in Switzerland. I've done some things in Poland. I've done some things in Slovenia. I've done some things in different parts of Switzerland as well, like Geneva and Zurich. So
Israel too.
Yeah, Israel, of course. Yeah, I mustn't forget Israel. My gosh.
That's right. Okay, so Heidi, if there was, is there one lesson that you have learned through your Montessori journey that you'd like to share? Maybe people can learn from, or is there something, is there some life wisdom that you have gained that you want to share?
Okay, there's one little simple thing that I was thinking, I should say that. I should tell them that, because I nearly said it earlier when we were discussing. But another friend, for those of you starting a new school, a new classroom, okay, a friend of mine who has her own business said to me, don't buy anything today that's not going to change your life now or your working environment. Because it's so tempting to go off and think, I need this, I need that, and suddenly you have all this clutter and all this stuff that you don't really need, that you get emotionally attached to because you bought it with this attachment of this new love or this new passion that you have, and then you don't want to get rid of it. And that was such fabulous advice, especially because I said to you in the beginning, when I started my school, we really didn't have any money. And I still don't have a school brochure. We've never made a school brochure because we've never needed it. And it's like,
well, there are schools that don't need a brochure or a website, and yours is one of them. So yeah.
So it's one of those things, and that was such great wisdom. Don't buy anything or take anything that's not, you don't need and is not going to change your life today. That was really great. And then the other thing that I would say to you, and it's a lesson that I've learned from the children, in the moment. Just stay in the moment. Don't worry about those things you can't change. And you have to be sometimes a little bit, I have to tell myself this sometimes when I've done something, I could have done that better, or I didn't do that very well. It's done now. It's done. You have to just let it go and be busy with the things you can control. And what you can control is here and now. You can't control tomorrow, and you can't control yesterday.
That's right. Thank you so much, Heidi. I will share one more wisdom that you have taught me. Okay, and I'm going to show my T-shirt in order to demonstrate that. So here, okay, this is a Heidi's motto, or Heidi's wisdom that she shared with us on the diploma course. Keep calm and put a little bit of lipstick on if you need it, and just carry on. Things are going to work out in the end. So,
and that came from when I was working. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to say this. When I was working in a circus in Mexico, we had a public relations officer that said, whatever you do, whenever you go out, doesn't matter how tired you are or what's happened, put a pair of dark glasses on and just put on some nice bright red lipstick, and it will detract from everything else. To look the part.
Yes, it's a power look. It helps you attract the good things in your life.
I mean, and I'm very tired today, so I'm hoping the red lipstick today has done the job.
And you can see I don't normally wear red lipstick, but I thought I'd do it today for the conversation with you.
So,
yes, Thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you for spending the evening. I know that your lovely husband is probably cooking some lovely meal for you, and it's time for us to go to our husbands and have dinner with them. Thank you so much. This was amazing. And I hope we get to talk to each other about some other topics again sometime in the future, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people out there love to listen to your wisdom and to your stories. So thank you.
Good night, everybody. Good morning, everybody, wherever you are.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Dear colleagues and friends, thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this inspiring Montessori story. I hope it encouraged you. I hope you learned something from it. And I hope that you realize that you are not alone on your Montessori journey. I'm looking forward to speaking with my next guest. And as we say in Czech language, naslyšenou in 2 weeks. Yours with love, Mirka from Montessori Institute Prague.